Hello and welcome to the AIS Exhibitor Showcase, a podcast of which us here at Barclay Pearce Capital are proud to present. My name is James Whelan, Managing Director of the Barclay Pearce Capital Wealth Management Team, and I am joined here by the Executive Director and CEO of Constance Iron, Dave Mckenzie. Dave, how are you now?
Yeah, good morning, James. How are you? I'm very well, thanks.
Fantastic. Thanks for the first question. You got it right. Thank you for joining us on this one today, coming in Queensland. No, you came from up north, didn't you?
Came from up northern New South Wales. Correct.
Look, we're just going to have a really quick run through of what's coming up ahead in the schedule for Constance, yourself, with regards to some big things that are happening in London. We're going to talk about the listing timeline, which is pretty exciting as well. And we're also going to talk about why magnetite is one of the most exciting minerals at the current stage, especially for us as it is. Okay, so you ready to get into it?
Yeah.
So we've got the Australian Investment Summit coming up in London, July 10th. Are you looking? You're going to be going over in what role?
We'll be going over there as an exhibitor, and we will present at the Australian Investment Summit in London. That's our plan to, promote the company and the IPO that we're going to carry out over there in the short term.
We'll get into the IPO really quickly on this one, but so you're presenting two brokers to people, and that's at the LSE.
Correct. We'll be listing on the standard board of the LSE.
Yep.
We'll be speaking to investors, institutional investors, sophisticated investors around the investment into the IPO.
Yeah. I'm unfortunately I won't be able to go over there, but I was looking forward to getting over and seeing how you do it. It's really there's so much exciting news that's coming out of what's happening in London, especially for you over there. So first off, why the London Stock Exchange?
A couple of reasons for that is I think there's a bigger capital spread to start with than here in Australia for this particular size project. The other thing is the environmental impact of magnetite, which I'll probably bang on about a little bit during our conversation, as we are a magnetite producer or explorer producer as opposed to just an iron ore miner. I think it's fairly common in everybody's vocabulary. I know it is here in Australia and more so probably in the UK and Europe around magnetite is the green iron to make green steel. And so it has it's a much more sophisticated attitude in the UK and Europe around those particular facets of what is the magnetite story than what is here in Australia.
Now, do you want to sort of go further into that magnetite? Let's just go straight into magnetite and talk about that.
So
what's brought you to this stage now? What have you got under the ground?
Okay, so we have two assets. We have one in Queensland, exploration target potential of 700 million tonnes at probably a 58% Fe grade. It's JORC 2004 to 270 million tonnes. At 53% Fe, we've got, I think we have to twin 9 more holes at that particular project, and it becomes a JORC 2012. That's our Queensland asset. We also have an asset in southern Western Australia at Norseman. That asset was given an exploration potential tonnage of 360 to 930 million tonnes. We are at present carrying out our maiden JORC resource drilling at the project, which will give us somewhere in the range of 50 million tonnes, which will be our first 3 years production from the asset. And there is some hematite associated with that as well, so we'll have some direct shipping ore in hematite, but mostly we'll concentrate on the magnetite portion of that.
Yep.
So why magnetite?
Yeah, that's my next question. You got it. I'm just going to sit back and listen to the magic of magnetite.
So magnetite, as a rule, and I'll compare hematite and magnetite quite a bit in this conversation as well. Yep. Hematite comes out of the ground at a higher iron ore grade, so typically 58 to 63 or 64%. Magnetite deposits generally in situ are somewhere between 25% and 45%. There are higher grade deposits around the world, but I'm just generally speaking within Australia. Hematite is almost a direct ship. It's dig, crush, and throw it on a boat and That's your export. Yep. It has levels of phosphorus, aluminium, sulfur, just to mention a few deleterious elements, which are quite difficult, and silica, which are quite difficult to take out of that particular product when it's exported. So they're at high levels. Magnetite is a processed material when it comes out of the ground, so it's susceptible to magnetics. So the two ways that you can process the magnetite are dry magnetic separation and obviously a wet beneficiation plant. So in the first instance, we'll do dry magnetic separation at Norseman, which will give us the first 3 years of production, and going on to install a wet beneficiation plant to give us a higher grade product. Because the magnetite is processed, it has very few of the deleterious elements that the blast furnaces, and I'll just use China for instance, don't like. So it has less phosphorus because it's processed and it's treated. It has less phosphorus. It has less aluminium, and it has usually less silica. So it gets a premium pricing as well for those things. It also has a unique difference in the blast furnace than the hematite, because it has a different exothermic reaction within the blast furnace. So therefore requires less energy, so less carbon emissions as well from the blast furnaces. So less phosphorus going into the atmosphere, less aluminium, all of those things that go towards the commitment for the 2030 environmental targets that China and in fact everybody around the world has set. So to the steel mills, it's a very attractive I guess, cargo for them to get to put through their blast furnaces. Yeah. And as we move forward, and we can see the impetus now of everyone saying it's the green iron for green steel, then magnetite is definitely moving into the future. Mm-hmm. What steel makers are going to require.
Is that why it usually trades at a higher price?
It does.
Yeah.
Than
regular iron ore?
That's correct. Yeah. And that's the premium. So if you could imagine, if you're a steel mill, you would say, well, it's got less phosphorus, less of all these things that we're putting into the atmosphere that we get penalised for by our governments. Mm-hmm. And we're using less energy to turn a ton of magnetite into steel within the blast furnace itself. So therefore we have a saving in our process, and so we get a percentage as a magnetite producer. You would get a percentage of that saving that they have, and that's where the potential premium comes in.
That makes sense. So it's assisting the world socially or environmentally in some way, because we still need to produce steel. So that's and there is quite a sizable holding that's there as well in Norseman. That's
correct. So it's an asset of perhaps up to 1 billion tonnes, and has longevity. It's a good grade, so it's got a global resource grade in situ at the moment of 35% Fe, which puts us smack bang in the middle of what magnetite deposits are supposed to look like. We're doing, as I said, our maiden JORC, 2012 JORC for the asset, and our first stage production will be dry magnetic separation, moving into wet beneficiation in perhaps year 4 or 5. I guess the other great thing about the Norseman asset is it's got its infrastructure, which would cost hundreds of millions of dollars, already installed. So there's 15 kilometres from where we plan to do the mining and processing to a rail line which goes to the deep water port of Esperance, which has existing iron ore storage facilities and ship loading facilities. So all that sort of infrastructure is just I guess that's the cream on the cake for the Norseman asset, because we've got infrastructure in place.
Right there.
Esperance is right there,
which I haven't been to, but seems lovely on the photos that I've seen of it down there.
Yeah, it's nice.
Okay, so let's go back to London now. You're going over there. You're presenting. meeting with lots of brokers and funds that we've got prepared over there as well. Do you want to run us through the path to listing, what that actually looks like? It's a fascinating concept.
It is. So we will be in a position in the very near future to go across and start some pre-marketing conversations and do some pre-marketing presentations with investors over there and our brokers in the UK. So a very exciting 2 to 3 months coming up.
So it all ties together. You've got an asset which is better for the environment, listing in London because there is better fund flow on that environmental side, and you're going over as well to present at the Australian Investment Summit. It all marries up quite well.
Yeah, it does. I think it's a really exciting opportunity for anybody that wants to get involved in the magnetite scene and be connected with something that's very environmentally sought after, and it's going to be into the future. People talk about copper and electric vehicles. This is the green iron to make the green steel to go with the environmentally friendly vehicles and all sorts of things into the future.
Well, it does make a lot of sense. So good luck over there working with the LSE. They've been amazing to work with. I know from my side, they've just been sensational to work with. Are you finding that same situation?
Yeah. So we've met with a couple of representatives of the LSE here in Australia. They took the time to come across and have a look and talk to us. And I think they're going to be of enormous assistance and be very beneficial in our process going forward, given the just some of their connections with the FCA, the regulatory bodies, and everyone else over there. And I think they'll make the process much smoother for us to go through the UK process.
Yeah. Well, good luck when you're over there. Thanks very much for joining us, David Mckenzie, CEO of Constance Iron, and this has been our AIS Exhibitor Showcase brought to you by Barclay Pearce Capital. I'm James Whelan. Thanks for joining us.